started with a cry. Not the kind of cry you'd expect in the Irish countryside. A lamb calling its mother or a fox wailing in the woods. No, this one was human. A shriek so raw and unfiltered it tore through the fog at 3:09 a.m. and sliced through the air like broken glass. And it was just outside my window. First, I thought it was a nightmare. That old kind of night terror I hadn't felt since I was 6. When I used to sleepwalk and wake up in corners of the house I didn't remember going to. But this was different. I sat bolt upright in bed, heart hammering. Couldn't move. Couldn't speak. There was something ancient in that scream. Like grief mixed with rage, soaked in centuries of sorrow. And then, silence. Not the comforting kind of silence you hope for. It was the kind that presses against your ears, like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to break. I blinked at the frost-covered window, breath fogging the air. Outside, only shadows. And that's when I saw it. A figure, white, thin, hunched, standing by the edge of our field, by the old stone wall no one touches anymore. She didn't move. She didn't walk. She just stood. Her hair looked like riverweed, tangled and dripping, and her mouth was open wide, but no sound came out. I whispered to myself, "Don't look away. If you blink, she moves." But I did blink, and she was gone. My name is Gallagher, and 2 nights after that scream, my brother Cian was found dead. They said it was an accident. He drove his Renault off the Ballyshannon Cliff Road. No skid marks, no sign of struggle. Just a shattered windshield and a cassette player still running static when they pulled the wreck from the rocks. But I know that's not what happened, because the next night the scream came again. This time, it came from inside the house. I should back up. When we were younger, Gran used to tell us stories. Old ones, half in Irish, half in whispers, about Bean C, the wailing woman who followed bloodlines and warned of death. I laughed at them. Cian didn't. He always believed. He once told me, "If you ever hear her cry, you have to say a name. Just one. Otherwise, she takes who she wants." I thought he was joking. But now I can't stop thinking, did he say mine instead? The night after the funeral, I found something in his room. It was in the tape deck of that old recorder he used to carry everywhere, the same one found running static in the car. When I pressed play, it wasn't static. It was the scream, that same bone-cracking, soul-splitting scream I heard outside my window. Only this time there was something underneath it. A voice, a whisper, a name, and it wasn't his. I've listened to that tape 11 times. Each time the voice gets louder. Each time the whisper gets clearer. Last night it said, "He said your name, Royson." Now I haven't slept in 2 days. Every time I close my eyes, I see her, closer than before, standing at the foot of my bed, hair dripping, mouth open, waiting for me to say a name. But I won't, because there's no one else left to take. The first sound on the tape is a heartbeat. Not mechanical, not recorded, real, wet, slow. Like someone placed the recorder against a chest as they were dying. Then, the scream starts again. But this time it's not outside. It's not distant. It's in the room with me, and under it clearer now, a voice. "He said your name, Royson." I dropped the tape. I physically could not hold it. My fingers refused. My entire body felt as if it had touched a dead thing. Something not just cold but cursed. I stood in my brother's room, chest tight, blood roaring in my ears. But I couldn't walk away, because I knew something no one else did. That cassette recorder, it was broken. Not recently. For years. Cian had stopped using it after Dad died. I remember the day. He threw it at the wall after playing back one of their old fishing trips. The line cutting off right as Dad's laugh filled the air. "I don't want to hear ghosts," he'd said. The corner had cracked, and it had never worked again until the night he died. Until it was found in the car, running. Until it was waiting for me. But that's not the part that terrifies me. Is that I recorded over that tape when I was 10. I know what was on it. And it was a school play. I couldn't sleep again. Not after that. The scream was still inside me. Not echoing, but pulsing. Like it had found a place to live behind my ribs. Every sound after midnight made me flinch. The creak of floorboards, the ticking of the wall clock, and then the knock. Not at the front door, not the back. On my bedroom window, 3 slow taps, like fingernails. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Then came the voice. Don't let her in. I turned so fast I pulled a muscle in my neck. No one was there, but I knew that voice. My mother's. The one who disappeared 15 years ago. They said she drowned in the Shannon, but her body was never found. Cian always believed she walked into the water on purpose. But once, when we were still small enough to share fears, he'd said, "What if she didn't jump? What if she ran? And the Banshee followed her too?" At the time I thought he meant metaphorically, the way grief stalks a family. But now I know better. The next morning, I brought the cassette to Father Brennan. He'd baptized us both, married our parents, and buried Cian. If anyone would know what the tape meant, it was him. He listened with shaking hands. And when the scream came, he stopped it before the voice could speak. Where did this come from? Cian's car. No, this isn't new. This is older than him. What are you saying? He opened his desk drawer and pulled out something wrapped in wax paper. Another cassette. Old, dusty, labeled only in black ink. Maggie Gallagher, 1971. Gallagher, our grandmother. My pulse went icy. Father Brennan didn't speak as he pressed play. And then, the same scream. Identical. Even the voice underneath. But this time it didn't say my name. It said, Catherine, my mother's name. I heard this scream the night Maggie died, Father Brennan whispered. And the same scream came the night your mother vanished. I asked him where he got the tape. Your grandfather made it. He used to record voices. Said it helped him hear the truth better. When Maggie died, he locked this one away. Said it was cursed. Couldn't breathe. Why do the names change? I asked. Because she only cries once, he replied. Then she chooses. I left his house with 2 tapes in my coat pocket and a hurricane behind my ribs. Why did my brother have a cursed cassette from decades ago? And why was it repeating? Worse, why was the scream getting louder? I played both tapes that night side by side. Something I wish I'd never done. Because beneath the screams, if you layer the recordings just right, you hear something else entirely. Laughter. Not human. Not kind. Mocking. Knowing. Like it's watched our family for generations. And we're not hearing warnings. We're hearing victory laps. But the true horror came after I turned them off. Not 5 seconds later, I heard something that didn't belong. My landline rang. I don't even use it. No one does. I picked it up and said, "Hello." There was a long silence. And then, "You never said a name." I dropped the phone and backed away. But something had already changed. In the mirror across the room, the reflection was no longer mine. It was Cian, bleeding, screaming, mouth open, but no sound. It began again at 2:06 a.m. The scream didn't come from outside. Not from the cassette. Not from memory. Came from the walls. It vibrated through the plaster like a pulse, deep and slow at first, then rising like steam, like something boiling underneath the house. And then footsteps in the attic. Not mice, not creaks. Deliberate, heavy, one after the other. That was the moment I understood. This isn't about Cian. It never was. It's about something older, something unfinished. I took the 2 cursed cassettes, the one from Cian's wreck and the one labeled Maggie Gallagher, 1971, and buried them at the bottom of the linen drawer. But tapes don't stay buried. Not when they whisper in the dark. The next morning, I found them lying neatly on the kitchen table, unwrapped, facing each other. And next to them was something I didn't put there, an old leather-bound diary, cracked spine, smelled of peat smoke and rot. On the front, MG 1954, my grandmother Maggie. Inside the first page, in slanted ink. The first scream was for my mother, the second for my child. The third is for me. Each page was soaked in paranoia. Maggie wrote about a shadowed figure that appeared during storms, soaked and wailing by the edges of the barn. about unexplained miscarriages, sleepwalking episodes, and a mirror that cracked every time someone in the village died. She claimed our family had been marked generations back by a grief entity the locals only spoke of in hushed tones, the keener, or as we know it, the Banshee. But Maggie believed it wasn't there to warn. She believed it was feeding. She wrote, "It doesn't come to grieve, comes to taste. One name every time, one scream per bloodline, and if no name is given, it chooses." One passage chilled me deeper than any scream ever could. "My baby died inside me, but I never heard her cry. Only the Banshee did. That night, the voice whispered, 'One still owed.'" I turned the page and found a name I'd never heard before. Catherine Mabe Gallagher. My mother. She had another name, one never spoken. Mabe. Why did she hide it? The next few entries were written in frantic scrawl. "Catherine hears the cries now. They follow her even in daylight. She says they live inside wires, inside the radios. I told her never to record them. She didn't listen. I found her at the edge of the river. Her feet were wet, her mouth full of names. She said the scream wasn't warning her. It was demanding her. She ran. But it will follow. It always does." That was the year my mother disappeared. I'd spent most of my life believing she took her own life, that grief or madness or sorrow had claimed her. But what if it wasn't despair? What if it was a trade? I returned to the cassettes. This time I listened to them side by side again, but this time through headphones. Not layered, split, one in each ear. And something strange happened. They harmonized. Not like music, but like one was asking and the other was answering. Left ear, the scream. Right ear, the whisper. Left, Mabe. Right, she gave you. Left, Kian. Right, no name said. Left, Royson. Right, you're next. My knees gave out. I ripped the headphones off and threw them against the wall. The tape stopped, but the scream didn't. It was in my head now, like tinnitus but ancient, echoing with memories I don't own. I started seeing things that weren't mine. Flashes. A man hanging from a tree with rosary beads around his wrists. A baby wrapped in blue linen, floating down a river. A woman, my mother? Crawling through a bog, hair soaked, mouth open wide, but no sound. I ran to the village records office. It was dusty, cold, full of names no one speaks aloud anymore. And there, under Gallagher lineage, I found it, a birth certificate for Catherine Mabe Gallagher. Mother, Maggie Gallagher. Father, unknown. But there was something stranger. A second record. Same year. Same month. Another child born to Maggie. Royson Mabe Gallagher. But that's not me. I wasn't born until 1994. So who was the first Royson Mabe? And where did she go? I turned the page and found a death record. Same name. Died at age 2. Drowned. But the record was incomplete. No signature. No burial location. Just one line under notes. No body recovered. Mother claimed she vanished after a scream. I don't know who I am anymore. My mother had a sister. Maybe even a daughter. Someone else with my name. But if the Banshee marks by name, not soul, what if I'm carrying someone else's curse? The last page of Maggie's diary held one single sentence. It doesn't want one. It wants the whole bloodline. Now I hear the scream every hour. Daylight, midnight, doesn't matter. It's not outside anymore. It's in the tape recorder. Even when it's off. Even when there's no tape inside. And just now, right before writing this, I picked up the receiver of the landline. Dead silence. Then, "You never said her name, Royson. Say it, or she'll take them all. Some memories don't belong to you. They sit in your mind like strangers in your childhood photos. Familiar, out of place, watching you." The scream wasn't just in my ears anymore. It was behind my eyes. Every blink, every breath, I felt her, waiting, not for a name anymore, but for recognition. I woke this morning to find every mirror in the house fogged. Even the ones that hadn't been touched. Even the one I kept in a locked drawer. On the bathroom mirror, drawn in condensation with a fingertip. She was never buried. I wiped it with shaking hands. And written beneath it, scratched into the glass. Not drawn, but carved. RMG. I thought I was RMG. Royson Mabe Gallagher. Born in 1994. Daughter of Catherine. Sister of Cian. But there had been another. The first Royson. Same name. Same blood. And apparently no grave. I drove to the churchyard on Carrick Hill. That's where our family has been buried for generations. The wind howled as I stepped between crooked headstones, past worn angels and lichen-covered crosses. I searched for over an hour. I found Maggie. I found my grandfather. I even found an empty plot with a rusted iron fence around it, overgrown with thistle. But no Royson, no dates, no markers, no sign she was ever there. Only one unmarked stone, cracked in half, sunken into the soil. When I knelt to touch it, the wind stopped, dead still. Then a child's voice. "You have my name." I spun around. No one there, just the cold. But in that instant, something inside me cracked. Not fear. Something older. Like a drawer being opened in my brain. One I'd kept shut since birth. And I remembered something that never happened to me. A red wool blanket. A lullaby in Irish. A bathtub full of water, too deep for a toddler. A scream underwater. I stumbled back to the car, my hands shaking so violently I couldn't grip the keys. And that's when I saw it. A name carved into the condensation on my windshield. Again, RMG. But below it, a second line. "I drowned for you. Back home." I tore open every box of my mother's belongings I'd hidden away in the attic after her disappearance. Old notebooks, prayer cards, receipts, a lock of hair tied with blue ribbon, and a sealed envelope addressed to no one. Inside was a photo, a baby in a red blanket, the handwriting on the back. Royson, 1992, 2 years before I was born. My heart stopped. There was another child, another Royson, but she wasn't listed on any records. Not baptized, not buried. She had been erased. And now her name, my name, was echoing through our house, through the tapes, through the screams. That night I returned to the old tape recorder. I put in a blank tape, pressed record, and I asked out loud, "What happened to her?" For 5 minutes, nothing. Then static. And beneath it, breathing, childlike, wet, as though lungs were filled with water. Then a whisper. I woke up in the dark. I called for Mammy. But you were there. Me? I hit stop, rewound, played it again. Same voice, same chilling sentence. But you were there. The scream came again at exactly 3:09 a.m. The time Cian died. The time the cassette first played itself. The time the figure stood outside my window. Only this time, it came from the hallway. And then, tiny wet footprints, leading from the front door to my bedroom. Too small to be mine, too fresh to be old. Each one made a squelching sound as I followed them. They led to the mirror, to my reflection. But what I saw in the mirror wasn't me. It was a little girl, wrapped in red, hair floating like she was underwater, mouth open in a silent scream, eyes locked on mine, pleading. She raised her hand and placed it on the inside of the mirror. And my hand, without permission, lifted to meet it. I felt wetness. And then a voice behind me said, "Mammy said only one could stay." I turned. No one there. But something was inside me now. Not possession. Not haunting. Recognition. A second heartbeat. A split identity trying to take shape. The diary. The tapes. The missing grave. All of it pointing to the same truth. I was born because she died. She died because I lived. And her name never left. The Banshee isn't warning me. She's not even after me. She's mourning a child no one buried. A child everyone forgot. A child who still screams for her name. But what if I'm not the real Royson? What if I've just been borrowing her skin? I checked the birth certificate again. Mine, 1994. But my mother's signature looked faded. Shaky. As if signed in panic. And above the R in Royson, a faint pencil mark, almost like an erasure. What if my mother changed the name? What if she gave me the same name on purpose? To fool the banshee? To pass the curse? I don't know who I am anymore, but I know who's coming. And if I don't uncover the truth before 3:09 a.m. tomorrow, she'll take the body that truly belongs to her. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Not after the footprints. Not after the mirror. Not after hearing a dead child whisper my name in my own voice. Every sound in the house was a threat. The ticking clock in the hallway began to sound like it was counting down. Each second closer to 3:09 a.m. felt like a promise kept. And I wasn't sure who was keeping it, me or her. The banshee doesn't hunt like a spirit. She waits like a memory, patient, ancient, terrifyingly familiar. And now, she was in everything. In the kettle's scream, in the hum of the fridge, in the floorboards crying under weight that wasn't mine. At dawn, I packed the diary, the cassettes, and the old baby photo and drove to the Gallagher farm ruins, where Maggie had lived before she died. The house was burnt out long ago, left as nothing more than a stone skeleton choked in ivy and ash. But the barn still stood, warped, crooked, like something had tried to collapse it from the inside, and almost succeeded. I stepped inside, heart thundering. And there, tucked in the hayloft, wrapped in rotting fabric, was a second diary, tied shut with a strand of gray hair. The cover read, Maba's journal, for her eyes only, my mother's middle name. I untied it with trembling hands and flipped through the pages. The writing was manic, uneven, filled with scratches, ink blots, torn corners. But every word burned into me. The first page. There were always two Roysons, but only one was allowed to live. The story unfolded in broken thoughts and scattered confessions. That Maggie had twins in 1992. That one was weak, sick, blue-skinned. That the doctor said only one would survive the winter. But the doctor didn't know about the scream. Mum said the banshee cried when both girls were born. That meant 2 deaths. But only one child died that year. And the scream never stopped. I kept the stronger one, but I kept the name too. I thought if I named you both the same, the banshee wouldn't know who to take. That she'd be confused. But death doesn't forget. She described hearing voices in the water, a crying child during rainstorms, the smell of wet skin on dry sheets, the sound of a tape rewinding in the dark, when none was playing. I thought I could bury it all. The name, the death. But you can't bury what never got to breathe. She follows the name. She follows the scream. She follows blood that pretends it isn't hers. I stopped reading, because I realized something chilling. This journal wasn't a confession. It was a warning, written for me. And at the very end, one single instruction in all capital letters. When she comes, do not look her in the eyes. I left the barn just before sunset. But something followed me back to the car. As I reached for the door, I saw a child's handprint in the dust on the window. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown caller. I answered. The same static. Then the voice. You lived the life meant for me. I dropped the phone. Inside me something split. Not fear. Not guilt. Something worse. Recognition. At home I set up every camera I owned. Every room. Every hallway. Then I rewound the tapes, placed the photo between them, and sat at the center of the living room as the clock approached 3:09 a.m. I wanted answers. I wanted the truth. What I got was her. It started with the crying. A baby's wail. Then a little girl's scream. Then silence. And then the front door creaked open on its own. She stepped in like she'd always lived here. Barefoot. Hair slick and dripping. Red blanket dragging behind her, soaked and stained. She didn't speak. She just stared at me, and I stared back, because I had to know, and that was my mistake. Her eyes weren't eyes. They were mirrors holding the life I should never have had. Birthdays that weren't mine. Hugs I didn't deserve. Family dinners where she should have sat instead. You wore my name, she whispered. You drank my milk. You took my mother. I tried to speak, tried to explain I didn't choose this, but the room began to spin. Every reflection in the house began to shimmer. TV screens, glass frames, the black surface of the microwave, all showing her. In each one, she was a little closer, mouth open wider, eyes leaking water, skin peeling like bark. And then she spoke again. "Say my name and give it back." I screamed, "I don't know your name." She paused, then smiled, not kindly, like she already knew what I would do. I ran to the mirror in the hallway, the one that hadn't fogged, the one that had been clear every night since she came. There, written in reverse, only visible now, was her full name, Royson Mabe Gallagher, 1992 to 1994. My name, but hers first. And that's when I understood the final, impossible truth. I was the shadow. She was the original. The Banshee didn't come for me. She came to return her. And now, she had found the imposter. I backed away from the mirror. My reflection no longer moved when I did. And behind it, she reached through, cold, wet, her fingers curled around mine, and whispered, "I'm home now." I no longer cast a proper reflection. Every mirror shows something slightly off, a shadow where there shouldn't be one, a flicker of movement when I'm completely still. And sometimes the girl in the red blanket instead of me. She doesn't blink. She just waits, like I'm borrowing her face, and she's waiting for me to give it back. The morning after she spoke through the mirror, I watched the camera footage. Every room, every angle, hours of silence, of flickering tape, and then, there she was, at exactly 3:09 a.m. No door opened, no footsteps. She just appeared, first in the hallway, then in the bathroom mirror, then, standing behind me on the living room feed, her mouth wide open, skin pale as snow, and her hand on my shoulder. But the most horrifying thing? I didn't react. I sat completely still, because whatever she did that night, I don't remember it. The next recording was even worse. The camera in the guest bedroom caught me walking in at 4:12 a.m., holding something in my arms, rocking it, singing an Irish lullaby I never learned. Seo within, SEO, MO store, and when I leaned down toward the crib I never owned, I placed something inside it. Then I whispered, "You'll sleep better in my skin." I slammed the laptop shut. My mouth was dry, my limbs cold. Something is slipping. Not just reality. Me, like she's hollowing me out from the inside. I called Father Brennan again. I told him everything. The missing child. The name. The tapes. The diary. There was a long pause on the other end. Then he said, in a voice I'll never forget, "I've seen this once before. Long ago. Another family. Different village. Same banshee. They buried the child. But the scream never stopped. Because sometimes it isn't the death that wakes the banshee. It's the lie." He told me of an old ritual, one outlawed even by the church. A rite of restoration. Not to banish the banshee, but to honor her grief. If you carry the name that was stolen, you must give it back. I asked how. By dying. Or by remembering what you were before it was yours. But I don't know what I was before this name. Everything I've ever known is tied to it. My school records, my driver's license, my birthday cakes, my mother's voice whispering it in the dark when I had fevers. If I give it back, who do I become? I drove to the cliff where Kian died. It overlooked the ocean, violent today. Waves like fists slamming against the rocks. And there, on the edge, was a figure. Small, barefoot, red blanket dragging behind her, soaked in foam. She didn't turn around. She just pointed down. At the shattered wreck of Kian's car, still caught between boulders far below. And above the wreck, floating on the wind, a voice. He said your name. You didn't say his. I fell to my knees, because I knew then, that night, when I heard the scream outside my window, I didn't say anyone's name. Not Kian's. Not mine. Not hers. I stayed silent. And she chose for me. When I returned home, every surface that could hold a reflection had turned black. The mirrors, the TV screen, even the puddle on the kitchen floor from a leaking pipe. And in each one she watched me, closer now, her lips moving silently, mouthing the same phrase over and over, "Say my name," or "Wear my death." I opened the last pages of Maba's journal. There, scribbled in shaky, smeared ink, "If you won't say it, she'll take your voice." And then a second line, "She took mine. You heard her scream, but you never heard me again, did you?" And I remembered. The night my mother vanished. I was 2. They said she walked into the Shannon. But I remember a sound. Not water, not crying, but silence. A silence so heavy it felt like the world stopped breathing. She didn't drown. She gave her voice, so I could keep the name. But that's not living. That's stealing. Tonight, I stood before the bathroom mirror. The only one not yet shattered. I lit a candle. I placed the cassette tapes at my feet, and I whispered her name. Roisin Mabe Gallagher. The real one. The mirror rippled. Darkness pooled across it like ink dropped into milk. And then she stepped through. No longer a child, but me, wearing my face, but without fear, without hesitation. "You remembered. That means I don't need to scream anymore." Then, she held out her hand, and I understood what she wanted. Not revenge. Return. I took her hand, and I saw everything. Every birthday she never had. Every hug from our mother she never got. Every scream she swallowed when the world forgot her name. And then she was gone. Not with violence. Not with blood. Just silence. But this time the silence felt like peace. I woke on the bathroom floor. The candle burned down. The tapes melted. The mirror, clean. And when I looked into it, I saw only myself. But something was different. I said my name out loud. Roisin. And the air didn't flinch. The room didn't shudder. The banshee didn't scream. Because I had said it. Her name. And mine. People think a haunting ends when the ghost disappears. When the crying stops. When the mirrors go quiet and the shadows retreat. But what no one tells you is, what remains after is still not entirely yours. It's been 7 days since I spoke her name. 7 days of silence. Not the suffocating kind. The kind that settles. Soft. Final. The scream is gone. The house no longer groans at 3:09 a.m. And for the first time in years, I've slept through the night. But peace doesn't come free. Not when the name you've worn was borrowed from a body that never got to wear it long enough. I returned to Gallagher's Hill today, the overgrown cemetery where I first found the broken stone. This time I came with a chisel. And with truth. The stone that lay half-buried beneath the thistle and soil now bears a name again. Roisin Mabe Gallagher. 1992 to 1994. She was here. She was loved. She was real. A name restored. A memory acknowledged. A bloodline rewritten with honesty. And still, something isn't right. Because the more I step back into the world I once knew, the grocery store, the old walking path behind the chapel, the smell of fresh bread in the kitchen, the more I feel like a visitor in someone else's life. I've kept the name, but it no longer belongs solely to me. And maybe that's the point. I went to visit Father Brennan again. He looked older now. Eyes sunken, voice thin, like something had been taken from him, too. He asked, "Did you speak her name?" I nodded. "Did she take anything?" I paused, then answered, "Just the silence." He looked at me with something like sadness, or maybe fear. "Then you should know. That was never the end." He told me a story I hadn't heard before, about Mairead ní Riain, a woman from County Meath who, in 1842, lost 2 sons to a fire. The night before they died, a cry was heard in the wind. When Mairead screamed at the wailing voice, demanding to know why her children had been taken, she got an answer. A whisper. They wore names not meant for them. It wasn't until much later that it was discovered both boys had been given names of relatives who had died in infancy. Their father believed naming them after the dead would bring luck. But it only brought confusion to something that walked between this world and the next. "The banshee doesn't mourn who dies," Father Brennan said quietly. "She mourns what's been erased." That's when I finally understood. This was never just about a ghost. It wasn't about punishment. It was about remembrance. About memory that screams when we silence it. About how a name is not a costume, it's a key. One that opens doors on both sides of the veil. Back at home, I played the last tape. The blank one I had used to record my plea. I expected nothing. But what I heard chilled me. Not a scream. Not static. A voice. My voice. But not from now. From years ago. I was 3, maybe 4. Giggling. Talking to someone. Are you my sister? No, silly. I'm you. Then the sound of wind. Water. A lullaby, soft, sweet, and broken by sobs. Then silence. I have no memory of that conversation. But part of me knows it's real. Knows she came to visit. Long before I ever heard her scream. There's something I haven't told anyone. Not Father Brennan. Not even myself out loud. Since that night, since the mirror, I've started doing things I don't recognize. Humming lullabies in Irish I never learned. Waking up with red thread wrapped around my fingers. Speaking names I've never heard in my sleep. And sometimes, when I look in the mirror, she's still there. Not staring. Just watching. As if making sure I remember what I did. Who I am. Who I was. I started writing everything down. Not just this story, but the ones that came before it. Maggie's diary. Maba's journal. The deaths. The screams. The names that were stolen and the ones that were finally returned. Because I think that's the final part of the ritual. The remembering. So here's what I know now. The Banshee didn't want to hurt me. She wanted me to see. To understand. She cried because a name was lost. And until that name was spoken again, the silence would consume everything it once touched. I still live in the same house. I still drink the same tea. I still answer to Royson. But now, I carry it differently. I wear it not just for myself, but for the girl in the red blanket, for the voice in the tapes, for the child who died unnamed and screamed to be remembered. Only one can wear the name, but that doesn't mean the other must be forgotten. Sometimes late at night, when the wind howls across the roof, I listen. Not for a scream, not for a whisper, just for the silence. And when I hear it, truly hear it, I whisper back, you were real, you were here, and I remember. If you want more chilling true crime stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe to the Veil of Secrets.